Today we're going to look at how to accomplish this in After Effects. And if you're not already, go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell notification. Studies show that people in glasses are more trusted and have an easier time of convincing the audience to do something. So let's do it. Real fast, if you don't want to hear me banter about how we filmed it or what issues we had or talking about the equipment and blah 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 at the beginning of my videos, there is in the description you can click to see exactly when I start doing the edit. Thank you. So with this effect, nothing really complicated, nothing too complex, just a lot of layers and a few moving parts. But real fast, I'm going to show you how we filmed it. It's pretty self-explanatory. We took the camera and we put it right against the wall. On the inside we see right here, and then on the outside right against the wall. And if you're wondering, if for those who watch the actual short film, if we're looking at that and you're like, I think he took from Into the Spider-Verse. We did. Okay, so right off the bat, we're gonna want to mask both of these images to be in the proper positions. Let us draw a rectangle mask right here, just having a little bit of this wall present in the shot, and then draw another rectangular mask around our delivery boy, just getting a little bit of the wall. And then let's right here, if we click, looks like a little box with it's right beside your percentage number right here. We can click a proportion grid to see our center line. And now we can just adjust our images to have this nice centered black rectangle in between both of them, which is representing that wall as if this is one shot and we're looking right at the center of the wall that's splitting them. The next part we're going to do is we're going to add the shockwave. If we look at the shot right here, you can see there's this brief moment of this blue shockwave coming out before we get to the freeze frame. So we're gonna add that. And that is from Video Copilot's Shockwave pack. That does cost money. However, they have a tutorial on how to do it in After Effects. I have the paid version, but I've also done the free version within After Effects, and it's still just as good. There's just, in the paid version, you get a bunch more options, and it's just quicker to do. If we take our shockwave element, which we have right here, you can see it's just a black square with the shockwave element, and then we take a solid, which I've already created one. If you didn't know, right mouse click in the timeline, new, click solid, and you're going to create one right here. You can pick what color you want, but again, I've already created one. If we take the solid, we put it beneath it, and then we have our track matte. It's set to none right now. Let us set it to Luma Matte Shockwave, the first shockwave, so it's gonna create a matte to the footage above it. We click that, and now you can see the shockwave is now, instead of being white, it's now the color of the solid that we had. And it's also a little bit slow, so we need to speed it up just a little bit. So right mouse click, time stretch, and then set it to 50. All right, so then we have that. And that looks great. We can actually rise it up a little bit. And if you're wondering too, Austin, there's this big black bar. It's not in front of the shockwave, which it would be. We'll figure that near the end of the tutorial. Thank you. So if we go back to the actual shot, we can see it's only for a brief moment. We're seeing this explosion, and then we go to the freeze frame. So we really only need here to right there, actually a couple frames less. So we're going to stop it right there. So if we select all of our layers and Control-Shift-D, you can see it has now split them. So we can delete the shockwave layer, we don't need that, and the shape layer. For the footage, for the actual footage itself, those layers, we will keep those, and we're going to make them freeze frame. So right mouse click on one, time, freeze frame, right mouse click on the other one, time, freeze frame, and now you can see they're frozen. So we get boom, and we're frozen. So this is where not knowing how you want to edit it prior to filming becomes a problem, but also this is just a mistake on my end as well. We never got a backplate of just the shot that you're seeing right now without our talent in the shot. which we need now because we're going to threshold the whole still without them in it because they're going to be separate from the background. The background. We didn't get that backplate, but there's a quick way to fix that. So double click on your layer. It's going to open it up in its own little layer, and we're going to select the clone stamp tool. You select that, you can see you have now this brush circle, and if we draw, you can see it's what it's doing. It's taking an area from the image and now using that as your image that you're painting. If you hold down Alt, you can pick the area in which you want to clone. So if we click here, you can see it's cloning that area now. You can see the little crosshair is moving. So it's not just cloning the same thing, but it's cloning as you move. So let's select like right in this corner right here, and then just start brushing down as we go. And as we go down, you can see it's starting to pick up his hand right here. So we just need to select another little piece so it's not picking him up, and continuing to just brush on down. I also want to say too, if you're looking at this, you're thinking that looks awful. It's okay that it doesn't look good because we're going to threshold it, which is going to make the whole image distorted to the max. So as long as we're not just seeing his body outline in this threshold, it's going to be fine. And now we have our image without him in it, and it's very convincing, if I do say so myself. And also, we should have done this before we started clone stamping, but regardless, it's an easy fix. But we need to duplicate this layer, Control D, and go down with this little arrow and go to the effects, the paint, and just click delete to delete all the brushing we did. And now we have a second layer that doesn't have that effect on it, which we'll need to then mask out our actor. So let me go ahead and do the same thing with the left side of the frame. So now we have both frames with our actors removed, and we also have a second layer that has our talents visible. Also real fast, when you're done with the clone stamping tool, you want to make sure that what you painted over your image remains throughout, because sometimes it can be set on just the single frame and not constant. So if we go on our layer and select the arrow, the effects, paint, we can see here all of our little clones that we did are only there for one frame. So we need to select them all and then extend it out to the full length of our duration, or however long you need the shot. So we'll go to the end of our work area. So now we're going to do a detailed mask to our actors. So we'll start again with the delivery boy. So now that we have that, you can see we still have this rectangle mask that we had at the beginning. So we hit M, that's the first mask. We can go to delete that one. So we're just left with this mask around our delivery boy. So let's do the same thing with the man on the left. Okay, so now if we look at the shot, we can see when this freeze frame happens, they're subtly moving backwards. All right, so we go right here. Let's click R to bring up rotation. Select the stopwatch tool to create a keyframe, and then just go forward in the timeline and then adjust the rotation. And what we're going to do is we're going to have them rotate backwards, so that's creating a negative number. Something very subtle like -4 is all we need. And then if we go back to the first keyframe, hit P, keyframe your position now, hit U to see all of your keyframes. We go to the end keyframe on our rotation, and I'll just position him a little bit up. So if we hit play, we can see him moving back slowly, and that's good. And you can easy ease these as well if you want. I'm going to extend it out a little bit more, select them all, and then right mouse click, keyframe assistant, and then easy ease. And now we're just going to do the exact same thing to our delivery boy. And then if we check it out, that looks great. And you can see here I'm having the delivery boy rotate up, rise up, and then our guy he's delivering to is rotating backwards, kind of showing the power shift in the situation. Anyway, so now let's go ahead and add this threshold effect that we're seeing throughout the whole shot. So we can first add it to our background, which we'll do with the background on our left. If we right mouse click, effect, stylize, threshold, and then obviously we can't see anything, so we need to adjust our I keep doing this thing where I'm pointing at the screen like y'all, again, like y'all are here. You're not here. But we need to adjust our threshold level. So there's good. And now the other effect we're going to add is effect, not stylize, distort, CC, Blobbylize. I guess how you pronounce it, right there underneath Bender. Anyway, so you can see now it's actually cutting away our threshold effect. So if we go to the blobbiness option and go to the cutaway, we set that to 0. It doesn't do that anymore, and now you have this like bubbly look to our threshold. If we take it off, you can see it's just a threshold, and now it's got this bubbly, cartoony, almost 3D popping look. So let's do the same thing with our other side. And now we want to add the threshold effect that we have on our talent, which is going to be just a slightly different number of the threshold. If we select the Chris layer, right mouse click, effect, again we go to stylize threshold. He's completely black. We need to adjust the number so we can see detail. Now, when I'm doing stuff like this to characters and it's kind of minute detail, I don't like seeing these masking lines right here. And if you're like that as well, you can go down here, you can see it's blue highlighted, toggle mask and shape path visibility. Select that, that's gone, and we can still have the layer selected. And again, we need to bring these numbers lower to see more detail within our character. And let's do the same thing with our delivery boy. And if we play through, we can see this. All right, sweet. So now let's add the outlining, colored outlines that we see here. That we see here behind our two actors. We have this blue and this purple. So if we just take the Chris layer, the guy on our left, and we copy, paste, so Control C, Control V. You could also just Control D, either one. And then select the file below it, right mouse click, and go to Effect, Generate, and then Fill. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the whole mask and fill it of its own color. So if I turn off the layer above it, you can see by default it's red. What we want to do is make it purple. You can make it whatever color you want. We just have purple. So let's just do a light purple. That looks good for the time being. And then, as you can see, the movement is still the same for our mask because it's just a duplication. But we want to make it slightly different behind him so it actually sticks out more. So if we click U to see our keyframes, and we go to the end here, right on our last keyframe, and then we just select it and then just pull it out further, you're going to see it's separating from Chris. So we're beginning to see more of it, and Chris stands out. So the next thing we're going to do is, with this mask of purple, select M, and then keyframe our mask path. So let's go to the very beginning of the shot, create a keyframe, and then go to the last part of it. And then, as you can see here, we have our mask toggle off. We need to toggle it back on. And what we're going to do is take a couple points that you want to extend out. So I'm going to pull this point out, but before I do that, I'm just going to create 2 new anchor points around it, and then just stretch it on out like that. And then we're going to see this little part, 2 little anchor points around it, and then stretch this one on out, and so on and so on. And now if we play it, you can see we're getting these like impact lines stretching out of this outline that we have of Chris. And again, we're just going to do the exact same thing we did, but for our delivery boy. And now we have this. And you can see for the delivery boy, the spikes are just coming out of his brain as if what is happening is blowing his mind. So now I want to add a glow to these colors outlines that we've added. And that's really simple. Just select one of them, right mouse click, Effect, Stylize, and then Glow. And in your Effects Controls panel, go to the Glow Radius. It's on 10. We just adjust that to give a nice little feather of glow around it. And yeah, that right there looks great to me. Okay, so now I want to add the borders that we have here, these colored borders right here. So if we right mouse click, New, Solid, we want one color that's red. Okay, and then right mouse click, New, Solid again, and we want one that is yellow. So that effect that we were using to fill in the mask of our actors, which was fill, it was effect, generate fill. You can also use that for your solids as well. If you select a color for one of your solids, you don't like it, you can just add a fill and then make it whatever color you want. And now we're just gonna mask out these jagged shapes we have for our borders. Man, that's like a vicious Pac-Man right there. Alright, so here's where we have our borders, and obviously these are going to pop in right when the flash happens and we're to this threshold freeze frame. So let's just move them up to that point. And I also want to pre-compose these together. It's just easier. So if we select both of them, right mouse click, pre-compose, we'll just name them border. And then I also like to, you see how pre-composing it made it a full layer of the work area. I like to take the beginning here and move it to where it actually is starting to show the image. It's just easier for organization. All right, so we're gonna make this border scale up with the whole shot. So if we select S and then keyframe our scale, go to another shot where we had keyframes, hit U so we can see where all the keyframes are ending. So we can go here, we can see right here, and then go back to our border and then just scale it up, let's say 115, and then we're gonna see here, we have this nice little move. It's almost like we're pushing in closer to our shot. Now let's create the shape we see in the middle right here. It's hardly really seen, but it's right here. It's like a spiky ball that's representing this blue explosion that's happening. So if we just, again, right mouse click, new, solid, we want some kind of blue color. Okay, that's good. And then let's just create this spike ball of sorts in the middle here. It's just going all around them. And we're just gonna scale the spike ball as the same way we did with the border. So if we hit S to bring up scale, keyframe the beginning, go to the end here, let's make it 110. And then we can see, looks good. So for the spike ball, we're actually going to set the blending mode right here. It's on normal. We're gonna set it to linear. I hope that's linear, liner. You know when you see a word, you're so convinced what it's pronounced like, but then you don't know. Anyway, we're gonna set it to that. And then we're gonna set the borders to add. So now let's add these little movement lines, which are very subtle. I don't even know if you really see them, but right on the edges here, you see these like little spikes going in and out, yeah, you know, they're moving around. So if we have nothing selected, we go to our pen tool and we just draw just a little, very narrow line right here. And you can see it's white. Let's make it, right up here it says fill, let's make it black. And if we go down to the layer right here, and then select add right here, and select repeater, make sure the repeater is not in our shape layer. You see I was in the shape 1, we need it outside of that, and then below, we need it outside and then below the shape. And then open the repeater up, do about 20. Right now it's on 3. The repeater is literally just repeating your shape. It's creating a bunch of them. Let's solo this this layer as well so you can see better what's happening. So it's created literally 20 of those little spikes. And if we go to transform, your position right here is on 100. We need it on 0. And then the rotation, we can rotate all, as we bring it up, you can see it's rotating all 20 of your repeated shapes now, all around. So you can just do whatever rotation you feel comfortable with, what looks good. You can see here it's kind of like coming into frame and ruining the effect. So we can select the shape that we've already drawn and extend it out further so it doesn't have cutoff in these corners right here. So then next you want to add, where we found repeater, we want to add wiggle transform and make sure that is below the repeater. And this is going to just have these little shapes you made now wiggle. So wiggle / second, that's how much it's going to wiggle per second. So let's make that about 15. Sounds good. And then if we go to transform, we're adjusting where it's going to wiggle. So right now, if we hit play, it's not doing anything because there's no information of where it needs to transform. So if we move the position a little bit, you can see now it's wiggling those positions. So let's undo that. And let's just do a little bit of the rotation. That was way too much, just a little bit, like at 4. And then just a little bit of the position. And we get this crazy nonsense. And then let's add motion blur to it. And now you have this right here, just complete craziness. And let's make sure the effect is starting right when the freeze frame happens. So if we hit play, we can see we have this craziness now. So for the next part, we're going to create this shockwave light effect we're seeing here as this shockwave thing is pulsating from the image. And we're going to use Video Copilot's plugin Saber, which is free. So if we right mouse click, new solid, and we have that solid be totally black, hit OK. Then right mouse click on that solid, effect, Video Copilot Saber. And we can see here we have now this lasered line. And what we want to do is we just want to create a circle with it. And so if we go to the effects controls panel, customize core, and on the core type, it's selected on Saber. We want to select layered mask, and then we can select our ellipse tool up top and create just a small little circle right here. And then as you can see here, we have a nice lasered circle. We want to pre-compose this now, so right mouse click, pre-compose. Make sure the move all attributes into new composition is selected, not the top part. And let's name it Shockwave Laser. And then we want to set the blending mode to add. So now we have this nice little laser here on the shot. Let's hit S, scale it down. Right there is about good. Keyframe your scale, and then just go about 5-6 frames ahead and scale it all the way out of frame. And also add motion blur to that layer. I somehow did it but forgot to say it. Now just go 1 frame ahead and select your keyframes, copy and paste, and then just do the same thing again over and over again. So we copy, paste 1 frame ahead of the last keyframe. And we can just paste it again 1 frame ahead of the last keyframe, paste, paste, tooth, paste. And now we have this. So you get that pulsating. It is a little bright, so if we select T, bring the opacity to something about 70. Now we're going to add a lens flare. Now this again is part of the Video Copilot's. You can tell I like Video Copilot. Actually, this is the last thing I have of Video Copilot. We're going to use their optical flares plugin. If you don't have that, I'm sorry. So we're going to right mouse click, new adjustment layer, put it right on top, right mouse click on that adjustment layer, effect, Video Copilot, optical flares, click our options, and then we must select our flare. So the flare I'm using for this situation is this one of like broken glass. It's part of the Pro presets. And just with a blue tint on it, we're going to set the blending mode to add and just put it right dead center. So we are going to adjust the brightness here. You can see in the effects controls brightness, if I bring it up, it makes it very bright. Wow, my eyes, they are blinding. So we're going to keyframe that. And what we'll do is we'll go right from the beginning of this, where the freeze frame starts, we'll go 3 frames ahead, keyframe it, because that's the brightness we wanted at, and then go keyframe, go 3 frames, not keyframe, go 3 frames back, right where it starts, bring it up to about 145, and then do 2 keyframes more back, and bring it down to 0. And now we're left with this. And I actually want to flash it a little bit more, so this keyframe here of the brightness flashing, let's bring it up to about 185. And let's watch that again. And yeah, that looks great. I like that. Okay, so the last little thing we're going to do with this whole composition right here is instead of having this black background, it doesn't really look black right now because the lens flare we added. But you can see here our little spike lines that we added that were all jittering like crazy. They're totally disappearing, so we need to have a slightly different color of the background. So if we right mouse click on our timeline, new, solid, let's make the solid something purplish but very dark. About right there. Looks good. Okay. And let's bring it down to the very bottom. And then our background here, so the background outside and we have the background inside, we want to set the blending mode to add, and it's going to remove all of the black in the image and just leaving the white. So now we have, it was very subtle, but we can see now these lines aren't being lost in the background, but they're still being seen. So we take this whole shot right here and we're going to pre-compose it. So select every layer and file, pre-compose. Let's just make it final. So now we want to add a black bar in the middle of this whole frame that's representing the wall that's in between them. So if we just select new, solid, make sure it's fully black, that looks good, and then go to our rectangle tool and then just draw a rectangle right in between them, one that looks good in size. So there looks good. So as you can see here, we are maintaining that wall now. And now, just to add a little bit more detail to the shot, we have our final composed shot here. And if we hit S to bring up scale, keyframe that, then rotation, keyframe that. I like to hit U to see the keyframes, and then move ahead in the shot. What we're going to do is we're going to scale it up to 105 and then rotate it just a little bit. Now, we can see these little, when we rotate, we're getting a little bit of cutoff right here, but that's okay because in the actual final shot we have crop bars there. And then what you're getting, oh wait, sorry, the keyframes too for this need to start right when the freeze frame happens. So let's go right there. So let's take these two keyframes, move them ahead right there, and now let's see what we got. Looks beautiful. And that is it. Psych! There is one more thing. To this whole layer, the final layer, right mouse click, Effect, Stylize, and then you're going to find CC Plastic. And we're going to add that. We can go up here to the effects controls of our plastic, and at the surface bump, we want to adjust the height. And you can see what this is doing is it's giving our image this 3D type, almost like a oil painting effect. And lastly, we don't want the effect at the beginning of the shot, but only when we get to the freeze frame. So go to the first part where it's doing the freeze frame, Control-Shift-D, and then take the bottom layer and just delete the plastic effect. And now we are left with, I mean, there you go. That's the effect. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that helps out with any of these projects that you're working on. I hope it helps with just learning After Effects in general. Go ahead and like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you don't miss any more tutorials. Thank you for watching. Again, hope it helped, and keep making film, keep editing, keep doing all this stuff, and thank you. Goodbye.